What are some day-to-day self-regulation strategies when you are at that moment of fear and it's affecting your sleep and your ability to function and operate?
Like if I say to my wife, "Is everything okay?" She goes, "Yeah, it's got like mild anxiety." About what? I don't know. Well, we always know, right? It's just developing the skill of peeling our internal onion and asking enough intelligent questions. Because when you realize what the fear is, you can watch the movie, or you can read the book, or you can go back to sleep.
Welcome back to the Charlotte and Giselle Show. Today's guest is Tony Blauer. Tony is the world-leading martial arts, self-defense, and fear management expert. Tony has dedicated over 4 decades mastering fear. His work has been integrated and vetted by the world's elite warriors, world-class athletes, and leaders. If you wanted to pick a fight, Tony is definitely not the person you would want to pick a fight with. Tony, welcome to the Charlotte and Giselle Show.
Thank you. What a what a wonderful intro, and I love your accent.
Oh,
One of our favorite cities is Paris. Obviously, that's you're from France, obviously, but I just wanted to comment on your accent.
I appreciate that. I know you have a Canadian background, so there is a French connection in there.
Yeah, there's definitely a French connection, but my French is it's pretty lame. So I won't be talking or speaking in French here. My wife will start laughing if she hears this.
Well, Tony, I'm so grateful to have you today on the show. I wanted to start off with a question around fear, because in my line of work as a burnout advisor, a clinical hypnotherapist, fear is the number one emotion I see the most accomplished professionals across any industries struggle with. What is your take on fear?
That's an amazing question, and isn't it fascinating that the high performers, entrepreneurs, politicians, actors, uh, athletes, they all suffer from the same fear as us mortals, but there's almost this incongruous disbelief from regular people going, "Oh my God, I can't believe so and so is afraid." You almost don't see it because we see them as unicorns with their productivity.
Mm.
And so I've got a very, very different approach to mentoring and coaching people with fear. It's one about embracing it as opposed to propagating an idea of that there's going to be a time or a place where you get to know fear, like the slogan "No fear." I'm afraid of nobody. I'm afraid of nothing. Fear doesn't affect me. And you see all this stuff, fearless. And for those of you who aren't watching or aren't listening on audio, you can see the shirt I'm wearing. It's one of the divisions of my company called the No Fear program, and it's spelled KNOW. This idea that when we get to know fear, we get to manage fear. That when we understand fear, fear can become our fuel. We can use it as a natural resource. It's when you learn, and it's a very Socratic and soft skill where you're going inward, introspective. Like, why am I afraid right now? What is this fear? What am I thinking about? And most people, especially type A personalities, which is most of the people that you work with and meet, and me too. Like most of my audience, up until recently, when business people and families started discovering the power of our work, most of my audience were operators, tier one military law enforcement, full-time SWAT teams, public safety police. And those individuals don't talk about fear. There's part of our society and culture that tells everybody you don't talk about fear. You suck it up, buttercup. And there's the danger of that, of course, it can undermine so much of our confidence and our ability to connect with other people if we're harboring certain fears. And I'm not here to talk like a therapist, because I'm not one, even though, and here's an interesting point, I have professional therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists who train under me to learn my system. There's one gentleman in particular named Jeff DeTesso, 20 years psychology with a particular, like a focus, a bias on helping vets with PTSD
Mm.
After learning our system and applying it to his clientele, he calls me and he said, "This stuff is more effective than anything I've learned in 20 years of psychology for these people." And I said, "Holy shit, Jeff, that's amazing. Like, too bad I could never have that on my website because, I mean, you just couldn't say that out loud." And he basically said, "I don't know, am I allowed to swear on your show?"
Yes, of course.
Very good. Just didn't know. I was on a show recently with two ex-military guys because they were streaming live. They said, "Hey, no swearing because, like, we'll get canceled." But I said, "Jeff, too bad I can't, couldn't share that testimonial online. Like, you couldn't say that as a PhD psychologist." He said, "Fuck yeah, you could say that." And so he's on our Coach Blauer page as the testimonial. The difference, and I'm kind of doing a preamble, to lead up to the answer. The difference is what we've done is we've differentiated between talking about feelings and talking about how I feel and how this fear makes me feel, and pinpointed it as a psychological distractor, that when we feel fear, it very often is accompanied with what I call a movie in your mind. You suddenly start to visualize a negative outcome. So the acronym that we use all the time in our courses, I don't know its origin, but some people think I came up with it. I didn't. Nobody knows the origin. But it's the acronym false expectations appearing real. False expectations appearing real. I'm visualizing something in the future that is debilitating me in the present. And that could affect how I talk to my wife or my husband, my kids, my partners. It affects public speaking. It affects entrepreneurship and everything. In our self-defense protocol, we have a very powerful statement: violence loves speed. And it's a deep talk, maybe for another time, if your audience is ever interested in personal safety, which they should be. I always make the joke when I work with executives and entrepreneurs. I said, you would do everything to protect your assets, but you have no clue how to protect your ass. And if something happened to you, everything happens to all your assets. And people are like, holy shit, never thought about it that way. And that includes like holistic self-defense, like the impact of just what's going on in the world. How does that affect performance? To any type of fear spike that could be finance, health, relationship, violence, all of that, we internalize at a certain level and it slows down critical thinking. So we've created this wonderful connection between studying the psychology of fear. And I'm not saying that understanding the physiology of fear and the neurobiology of fear isn't important, but a lot of that can be regulated with understanding meditation in a deeper way, understanding intentional breathing skills in a deeper way, self-care, working out, sauna, ice bath, whatever you're into that helps you control, you. But that doesn't change anything with psychological fear when you get a fear spike. And so what we focus on is what do we get is in the fear spike. And that is, again, like a sudden dramatic stimulus related to family, health, fitness, relationships, anything like that, where the movie in our mind starts. And now we're in the fear loop. And when we're in the fear loop, we aren't doing anything. But the only way to get out of the fear loop is to improve your self-awareness. So there's this wonderful connection between studying fear improves self-awareness, which improves critical thinking, which helps me get out of the fear loop faster. So I don't know if any of that made sense. I was like all over the place there, but I think it made
it
sense.
was wonderful.
Thank you.
Because the truth is that when we're talking about type A high achievers, the fear keeps them up at night. And it's actually a psychological fear, but that does lead to physiological impact in the long term or even in the medium short term. Could we explore a little bit that's sort of mindset around generating such a negative movie, as you said, to generate a positive result? Isn't that a bit of a contradiction in the end?
So the negative movie is a choiceless choice. Like none of us ever have, let's say, 3 good days in a row, and then you get up tomorrow and you go, it's really been a good week so far. I hope something catastrophic happens today so I can practice my resiliency. Like nobody ever wants something bad to happen to them. So the trick with changing the negative movie to the more positive movie, and you can't, this isn't like some metaphysical, like fluffy stuff. It's a very stoic mindset, right? Of just, hey, this bad shit happened. When I get through this, I will understand more. I will be tougher. I will be smarter. I will be more resilient. But we don't have a time machine. So this isn't about, going back in time and fixing it. Or I don't know if you ever saw the movie Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler as a golf comedy. But, they would say, get to your happy place, get to your happy place. And then his happy place was this like insane fantasy land, with unicorns and harps and well, it was funny. You'd have to watch it to get the reference. I'm sure many of your people in the audience have seen the Happy Gilmore movie. But the point being is, like, when I teach people stuff, it's not like, okay, get your happy space, let's meditate. The no fear program that I teach evolved out of learning how to manage violence. You don't have time to meditate when you're managing violence. So that's this whole thing of like, I need some very decisive, intentional self-talk right now because I'm about to get hit. And so this idea of my situational awareness alerts me that there's a problem. I will get a fear spike while my brain is trying to recalibrate. If I called up any one of your clients and I said, oh my God, do not open your phone and look at the news, there's no way that their physiology stays the same and they don't grab their phone. And even if I said, don't do it, they'd be like this going, and their physiologies change. And now they're wondering, but the movie is starting in your mind. Now, if the news is bad, that doesn't change the fact that the news is bad. So this is the whole thing why this system works, like I said, is because it evolved. This is actually from the 80s. This is how long I've been working on it. And it evolved out of managing violence. And I would tell people, I can't think of anything more scary and more compromising than one's inability to manage sudden violence happening to you. It could inarguably, in my opinion, be the worst day of your life. And people, if like the contrarians go, no, this would be bad, this would be worse. And I'm going, everything that most people describe, there's another subject matter expert that can help you. Like if I call you up and I'm like, Charlene. I said that with a little French accent. And I go, hey, Charlene, I'm freaking out. I know you do like some hypnosis stuff. Can you help calm me down? You're now a subject matter expert that's coaching me. If I break my tooth, I'm going to call a dentist. My roof is leaking. I'm going to call a roofer. My car breaks down. I'm going to call AAA. Almost every problem in life can be solved if you've got the time and the resources and the resourcefulness. You call a subject matter expert who's maybe, figured this out and can time collapse a solution. There's only one problem in life you do not have time to call a subject matter expert, and that's sudden violence happening to you or your family. And that's our main business. Now, why is that? Because you don't have time to dial 911 in a sudden attack. And it takes, if it takes, like 4 years ago, it used to take, 3, 5, 10 minutes for the police to arrive. Like now, it's taking way, way longer. My point being is, what we realized is we needed to turn fear into fuel. And one of our expressions in our No Fear program, it's one of my favorite, is you can't be brave if you're not afraid. Yeah. The primary ingredient of courage is fear. And when you learn how to make that shift, you realize this is the choiceless choice. I need to move now with my fear, not without it, which is why all those, fearless, no fear stuff, we really dissect that. Now, The movie in your mind, which is the last question, the movie in your mind is this idea. This is one of the most powerful things that I share with people. There are many things in life we need to do while we're afraid. We can't wait to be unafraid. And that could be, and it's funny because well that the number one fear in the world is still public speaking.
Yes, stage
Not
fright.
right? Isn't that crazy? And what's wild is like up there getting dragged to a secondary crime scene and being tortured and beaten isn't on the list, but stage fright is. Loss of a loved one, job security, sharks, and I get that. But it's so funny when you think about it. And I've helped a lot of people with their stage fright and their public speaking. So one of the things I love to share is when I'm talking and I'm articulating and I'm using big words to make people feel obsequious and subservient, right? Quickly Google those words. What did you just say? And I'm using those words on purpose, and I'm talking and I tell about the time that I was on, this big event, 500 people talking to the audience. And here I am at this special unit, and here I am at the Pentagon, and here I am. And people are like, holy shit. And I go, you know what? Every single time my heart was pounding. Every single time I was worrying about the future. How is this meeting going to go? How is my talk going to go? I can remember calling my wife before certain events, going literally, and I'll use a prop. My phone is off, but I use a prop and I'll go, hey, I'm freaking out. I just forgot everything I was going to talk about. And she's like, what are you talking about? I go, no, like I'm freaking out. And she goes, what's going on? I got to go on stage in 5 minutes. And I just called you to tell you this is the end of our company. And she goes, and she always says, you know how many times you called me with the same thing? She said, just go out there and start talking. You'll be fine. And I'm going, no, this time I really, and then I go out there and I call her after. I go, that's my best talk ever. And there's ways to get there, but listen, this is a fun thought. You may meet somebody who you idolize, and you say to them, "Hey, you were on stage, and I saw you talking, and you were having so much fun. You look so relaxed. Like, how do you prepare? How do you reconcile your nervousness?" And they may say to you, "I'm not nervous. I love it." You may look at a fighter and you go, "Hey, before a fight, how are you? Like, how do you prepare? Like I'm nauseous before I got to go spar at the gym, let alone go compete." And that person says, "I'm not afraid. I love fighting." These are the fucking unicorns, and you can learn nothing from a unicorn other than work ethic and maybe be inspired to train. Let me say this again. Very often, a mistake we make in our pursuit of excellence is accidentally looking at a unicorn. Unicorns don't know that they're unicorns. And if you're asking somebody how they manage their fear, and they honestly tell you they don't feel fear, then you can learn nothing from them because you have fear. It's not a secret, right? And so, and I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people over decades who experience sudden violence at the highest level, right? Just to understand the psychology of fear, not the biology or physiology of fear. All of their hearts were racing. All of them had, vertical breathing, sweaty palms, dilated pupils. Like, the physiology happens at a non-conscious level. The difference and the connecting thought that inspired my program was what the thought process was for the victors versus the victims. Mm. And that's the message that you can bring to leading your family, leading your business, leading your team, leading yourself, is what is my self-talk? And for that, that's where the No Fear program is most powerful.
Absolutely. I love that you talked about this pursuit of excellence, and you've had an incredible careers over 40 years. How have you managed some of the biggest fears in your life, and what has pursuit of excellence look like for you?
Pursuit of excellence will cost you friendships and relationships. because people don't like the change, right? Half the world is cool with the way things are, and so like for me, it's a choiceless choice. I use that term a lot. I get up every day trying to reinvent myself. I'm never, and this isn't a good thing, because if you said, "Are you ever happy?" and I qualify this, I'm never happy with where I'm at, but I can be happy in the moment. If I'm out in nature, I'm on a trip with the family, I'm reading a good book, I'm watching a good movie, I'm like, I can just tune into that. I did a really nice workout just before. I'm 63 years old, and I've got I live with daily pain from things I've done to my body, neck, back over the years. It's just part of the game. To me, there's no serious athlete that isn't in pain a lot. And that's that unicorn thing. If you walk up to someone and go, "Hey, how's your back? How's your neck?" and they go, "Fine, no problems at all." I got nothing to learn from that person. But some people just don't talk about it. I talk about it because I want people to know that's okay. It's not that we're milking being vulnerable, but it's just okay. So my journey is an interesting question. Biggest fears. How do I pursue excellence? It's just this idea of something that I first said this in the 80s. And again, I think it was inspired by something I read somewhere, but we should always be willing to give up who we are today, for who we could become tomorrow. And when I'm really talking to people about situational awareness and self-awareness, I remind them that what was important to them when they were 1 year old to 10 years old changed when they were 10 to 20, changed when you're 20 to 30. And I'm just making it easy for the math by decades. Obviously, it's not by decades. But, your life changes the day you become, let's say, a parent. Your life changes the day you decide to quit your job and become an entrepreneur. Your life changes the day, there's a market crash and you got to pivot. And so it's this ability to reinvent like what you need to focus on and what's important now. It's a famous Lou Holtz acronym. Everyone wants to win, and win is the acronym for what's important now. What's right now, what is the most important thing that I could be focusing on and what I could be doing. And so I do want to share this, and I alluded to it earlier. I am considered a world authority on fear management, and I travel all over the world, and I talk to, from corporations to, like I said, tier one military, to all that. And one of the things I always tell people, and I don't know if it costs me business or not, because I say it anyhow, is I'm afraid every day. Something happens every day where I go, fuck, oh shit, what the hell's this? Right? And it could literally be, I remember I was doing a talk for this, 50 SWAT officers, and my computer wouldn't load. New computer wouldn't load. And I'm up there, and I'm like one of the keynote speakers, and I'm like, fuck me, no. And I start sweating. I go, what is this? Like, I tested everything yet last night. And then and I'm like, my heart is pounding, because they're all sitting there waiting, and I can do stuff without my computer, but there's a ritual. There's a, and it's funny, because there were many people who will look at me and say, what is it like to have no fear, Coach Blauer? And I look at them, I go, like, are you talking to me? Like, what are you talking about? There's this assumption, because I can get up on stage and I can tell jokes and do a presentation and do a demo, and people think I have zero stage fright. And the reality, and this is the fun stuff, is I'm really big about semantics. Nobody has stage fright. There's no such thing as stage fright. Just like I say, like, there's no such thing as imposter syndrome. And I love getting deep, and because we get these labels, and then we go, I got stage fright. And I go, well, then don't talk on the stage, talk on the floor in front of the stage. And people are like, what? How? No, I mean, like, oh, like what you're really afraid of. And if you peel the onion, we'll find out what you're exactly afraid of. And now you, instead of having fear of the unknown, you've got fear of the known. And guess what, my friend? There are things you need to do in life while you're afraid. And if you got to go do this talk and you're afraid of that one person that can influence your career and they're sitting in the front row, there are strategies to overcome that. But you might have to just do it afraid. And your first event is not going to be like your 10th event or your 20th. And here we go to that 0 to 10, 10 to 20. Sometimes it's really just about doing the reps. If you think a situation that inspired all this fear in you is going to be recurring in your life, then it's your responsibility, spelled with a hyphen, responsibility, your ability to respond to that ask in the future, to look deeper into it. So you don't go, oh my God, this again. I never thought this would happen again. Because now we've got the negative self-talk. Remember, the movie in your mind is really interesting. It's a fear factory, like a movie studio. And you're the producer, you're the director, you're the casting director, and you cast yourself as victim number one in your own movie. And you can stop that movie, you can rewrite the script. And there's so many strategies, but it really comes down to looking at fear differently and actually saying to yourself, the next time I get a fear spike, let's have some fun with it. Let's look into this. I this and I'll share a story to illustrate that if I can.
Please,
I get
love
this call.
stories.
I get this call from this athlete, like a highly competitive CrossFit type athlete who her name's Natalie, and she calls me up and she says, "Hey, I heard that you're the Anthony Robbins of fear management." And I said, "Okay, cool, thank you. I'm a fan, smart dude." And I said, "How can I help you?" And she says, "I've been competing for 10 years, and I always get overwhelming fear leading up to a competition." She said, "I have a competition this Saturday, and what happens is, like, Wednesday, I start to get all my anxiety. Then I have trouble sleeping Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. I know the sleep is affecting my performance. I'm not eating. I'm not hungry. I'm nervous. And I do well. I do well on Saturday, but I can only imagine if I was sleeping properly and I was eating properly, how much better I would do." And I said, "Well, describe to me the fear you get on Wednesday." She goes, "Usually like around dinner time, I start to feel like my body start to change. Like, here we go." And then it gets so bad, I feel like I want to die. I am so scared and I can't sleep and it's restless and I fall asleep and I wake up and look at the clock and I interrupt her. I say, "Natalie, it's so bad that you feel like you're going to die, right?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "Okay, I want you to answer this next question carefully." And we're on a Zoom call like this, right? And I pick up a pen in front of me. I'm looking for a prop here to make this look dramatic. I pick up a pen and I pretend I'm writing. I need to know these numbers. For me to create a prescription and a remedy for you to manage fear, I need to know the exact number. And she says, "Okay, what number is that?" I said, and I start to write. I go, "Think back in the last 10 years, how many times this fear has killed you? How many times have you died from fear? Go ahead, think about it." And I want to write the number down. And she goes, What? I go, "How many times have you died from the fear? Because you said you want to die, so I just assumed you died a couple of times." And she goes, "No, it's a figure of speech. Of course I didn't die." I said, "Oh, so you haven't died from fear." And she kind of looks at me. I go, "Natalie, here's what I want you to do tonight. It's 3 p.m. You have a favorite movie, like an old black and white movie or an old classic?" She goes, "Yeah." She names the movie. "What is it?" I said, "Okay, I want you to load that up on the TV. And do you have like an old book you haven't read in a long time, but something you go back to every so often? I'm Gone with the Wind or whatever. I don't care what it is. War and Peace." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "I want you to get that book out." I said, "Tonight, around the time, like the ghost of Christmas, where fear comes into the house, I want you, as soon as you feel that sensation, here we go, right? The butterflies in the stomach start. As soon as you feel that, I want you to point to where you imagine it coming in. I want you to do this with your finger, right? Come here. And I want you to say out loud, 'Come here, you little fucker.'" And I said, "We're going to watch this old movie. We're going to watch Gone with the Wind or Rebel Without a Cause or, whatever. I want you to watch that movie. And when you finish it, if you're still awake, I want you to read your book. And I want you to say, fear is my companion. Fear is just here, part of the journey. And I want you to just focus on the movie and focus on the book. Call me tomorrow. Let me know how that works out. And she says, that's it? I go, yeah. Just let's rehearse it. Come here, you little fucker. Sit down here. We're watching this movie. Lawrence of Arabia. Let's go. Whatever it is. She calls me the next day. She says, Coach Blauer, I don't even remember falling asleep. Holy shit. And it was just a little switch, a psychological switch of saying, how do I make fear my friend? Because if I can make fear my friend, I can turn fear into fuel. It's not this oppressive, noxious stimuli. It's something I'm going to use. It's just part of where I'm at in my journey as an athlete, where I'm at in my journey as an entrepreneur, where I'm at in my journey as a parent. I've got 3 kids. My son's 32. I got a 27-year-old girl. I got a 22-year-old daughter graduating. I'm afraid every day if they're supposed to call me, if my son's going on a trip, my daughter's going on a trip. I think about everything as a parent. And it's just this idea, instead of letting the movie run its course, you catch yourself. This is the self-awareness piece. Oh, my daughter is supposed to check in. It's now midnight. She's supposed to call me at 11. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. I'm freaking out. Was she in a car accident? Was she kidnapped? Is she getting raped? What the fuck's going on? Then she rolls in, and I can be really angry and create tension, or I can go, I'm so glad you're safe. What happened with the 11 o'clock call? You freaked me out. But it's the first thing is to self-regulate, and you can't self-regulate if you can't introspect, and that's a self-awareness skill set. So our hypothesis or our program is by studying fear, we improve our self-awareness. If we improve our self-awareness, we improve our critical thinking. And critical thinking says, don't worry about the future. Stay right now, watch a movie, read a book, and whatever happens, you will address. And it just shortens, and this is a very, very powerful thing. What's the only resource we can't regenerate in the world? What's the only thing we can't get back once it's spent?
Time.
While you're in the fear loop, you are consuming time. You are not spending your time because you're worrying about an event in the future that hasn't even happened. So you're not productive in any way. You're not coming up with solutions. So the last part of this hypothesis, and it's not a hypothesis, it's an actual fact, is if time is the only resource we can't regenerate, then the idea of having a system where I manage fear means I'm managing time. Fear management is actually functional time management. You think about, like I've worked with a bunch of entrepreneurs who, one of the questions we ask them, I go, when you had the idea that you wanted to go out on your own, how long ago was that? It's never yesterday. It's always like, well, 7 years ago, I had this idea. 5 years ago, I did this. Same thing with a relationship. Same thing with when somebody makes that big change, it's after 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 years. That means that for that period of time, they were carrying their fear. Like if you knew, and you've talked to entrepreneurs, right? And they'll say in some sort of conversation, yeah, like 5 years ago, I knew this wasn't for me, but the pay was too good and the security, and I had healthcare, and I did. And then they finally go off. They go, I'm making less money than I was making, but I'm so much happier. Or I'm making more money and I'm so much happier that I'm working for myself. The question, what I look at is what was the refractory delay between stimulus and response, between when you knew you wanted to get a divorce or get married, fix your health and your fitness versus what was the time lag, the fancy word refractory delay between stimulus response? That's the fear loop. Because if you had zero fear, you would just do it. You'd rip the Band-Aid off and you would go. So It's interesting. I said right near the beginning that violence loves speed, and I never finished the thought, because in the same way that when I teach personal safety and self defense, and I say violence loves speed, so we need to improve our mind speed, not how fast you punch, not how fast you kick. The mind navigates the body, and so the thing that gets you moving, whether it's run, barricade, fight in any type of violent encounter, it's mind speed. And the mind speed is about managing fear and choosing an optimum strategy. Well, guess what? There's a parallel thought for business people. The way violence loves speed, well, business loves speed. How many people go, I thought about that idea last year, but you weren't first to market. And you sat on the idea because, and you could use whatever language you want, but you sat on the idea because of fear.
Yes.
And it's that powerful. So I don't know if I answered your question. I went off on a crazy tangent and rabbit hole about so what I do is I make this joke. I'm going to get you know those lapel pins when you work at like a big corporation. Like I'm going to get lapel pins for people that say fear manager, right? They're like manager on duty, fear manager on duty, because the joke being is that's what we are. Things are going good, and then like think about, we go into a panic if we leave our phone and you're on a meeting and you get up to leave and you leave your phone on an airplane or a restaurant, you freak out for a second. Most people freak out. Oh my God, my phone! I'm going to be late to the airport. It's all fear management. I mean, it's everywhere in your life, and I really believe that you think like you're 5 minutes late for a meeting, you're pushing the elevator button 10 times. Like the elevator doesn't know you're doing that, doesn't care, but you're doing that because of fear. That's all. All of these weird behaviors, you peel the onion, it's fear of something. And if you could self-regulate more, you would just be closer to that gratitude state that we all aspire to be at, right? Just that perspective. So I don't know. It's we've got so many programs that we teach in the self defense realm, scenario, weapon, multiple assailant. We've got 80 different programs in my company. The most important. If you said to me, "What's your favorite course?" and if you could only teach one course, here we are, like 40 years later. I've been teaching since 1977. What's your most important course? What's your favorite course? After all these years, I realize it's the no fear course, because the people who manage their fear are the ones who manage to fight.
Yeah. And you've mentioned self-regulation, and you've mentioned some great strategies with Natalie. And I think in many ways, many of us are Natalie. I related to that story very deeply. And I know that many of my clients are Natalie at night when you're staring at the ceiling, and it may not be a competitive athletic event. It may be a board meeting. It may be a political speech. It may be a trade. What are some day-to-day self-regulation strategies when you are at that moment of fear and it's affecting your sleep and your ability to function and operate?
Yeah, great question. So here's the neat thing. The most important, I guess, strategy that we teach is I want you to be independent and understand how to look at fear. So there's no codependence. You don't need a level 2 from me. You don't need, like there's a lot of stuff out there that's like the remedy is specific to the problem. And I don't think that's practical, because I think, and I know from living it, that like the fear spike, like if I say to my wife, "Hey, is everything okay?" She goes, "Yeah, it's got like mild anxiety about what? I don't know." Well, we always know, right? It's just developing the skill of peeling our internal onion and asking enough intelligent questions. Because when you realize what the fear is, you can watch the movie, or you can read the book, or you can go back to sleep. So like for me at this point here, and I'll give you again another story to give you an example. When everything hit in 2020, all of my business, the majority of my business was training law enforcement, public safety. Well, in 2020, when it was like 2 weeks to flatten the curve in 3 months, all of my business got stopped. Because think about it, hand-to-hand training was live in person. That stopped. And then my primary customer was now deployed because we didn't know what was going on. And I went from, okay, this is cool, I'll take some time off, to, holy shit, I just canceled 35 classes. That's, over $500,000. And I was sitting in my office and I went, I'm going to lose everything I ever worked for. I'm 60 years old and I got all the toys that, working like a maniac can bring you if that's important to you. But I got a wonderful family and I've got my dogs and I live where I want to live and I'm doing what I want to do. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, I'm going to lose everything. And Mr. Fear Management, just suddenly I'm like bent over in my chair. I want to throw up. I'm like going, holy shit. It was like somebody stuck a Hoover vacuum up my ass and was sucking out my insides, right? It was just nauseous with fear. And I gave myself 24 hours to just commiserate and feel sorry for myself that I hadn't prepared better for something like this. And I called my team and I said, hey, we're going to lose everything if we don't pivot. So in 2 days, we're going to get back together, and any idea is a good idea. I don't care what it is. And so we started, again, online education, training. The no fear became a big thing back then. And I started something called what's called a tactical garage gym. It's 3 times a week. I teach on Zoom to people all over the world. And our program is so cerebral that you can actually learn it solo in your house, which was the whole idea. Back when I launched it, because everyone was like locked in their houses, we were doing it 5 days a week. And it was a way to keep people sane, right? But here's the thing: the first day of the class, and this is the deeper answer to your question, and then I'll give a couple other strategies, because your question is, okay, what are some tips or strategies for someone who's like up at night, insomnia over fear, something's got us distracted? What can we do? The answer is you've got to cultivate self-awareness, because self-awareness is the only thing that gives you access to critical thinking, not biased thinking. Mm-hmm. Biased thinking, then a lot of times we play the game. It's another play on words. I love that. I just forgot it, but there's a quote I'll share instead from Richard Feynman. He says, the first principle, quote, is never fool yourself. And remember, you're the easiest person to fool. It's such a powerful quote. And the other play on words is the rationalize, spelled with a hyphen. Rational hyphen lie, right? Where we tell ourselves we are thinking we're critically thinking, but we're not. We're rationalizing. We're going, well, this always happens to me. Well, that's not critical thinking. Maybe this isn't meant to be. That's not critical thinking. Maybe this is the universe telling me I shouldn't be on stage right now and I should go to work for somebody else. That's not critical thinking. That's you rationalizing your fear or your performance. Mm. So it's very, very deep. So here I am. I've started this garage gym. Let's go back 3.5 years, 4 years. And I'm going to teach on Zoom. We don't know how dangerous things are. Everyone's freaking out. It was the height of the craziness. And I'm walking around the house. I'm about to do my first class on Zoom. We had 100 people sign up. It actually saved my company, that course, because I sent out a message to all of my newsletter list. And I said, look, a lot of you can't afford to train with me because of geography. You live in London, you live in France, you live in Germany, you can't get to a course. I don't teach that live that often. Well, here's a chance to train with me. And I told people, I said, I'm going to be very transparent. if you can't afford this, let me know. You can come train for free. If you can't afford it, pay it, because I have no money coming in and I will lose my company if I don't figure out a way to do. I didn't like pretend everything's cool. I just told the truth, right? And I had 100 people sign up. So I've got like literally in a day. So here I am the first day. So imagine this. I've been teaching now at the time, it was 2020. I've been teaching 40 something years. I invented my own system. I've been on the cover of martial art magazines. I've been in Forbes magazine. I've talked all over the world. I trained like tier one assets all the way down here. And I'm walking around the house like this. The class is about to start, and I'm doing this. I'm walking around, I'm pacing in the kitchen. Holy shit. And my wife says to me, "Are you okay?" I said, "I have so much anxiety, you have no clue." And she says, "Why do you have anxiety?" I said, "Well, it's the first garage gym class and I'm like freaking out." She goes, "How could you be freaking out? Number one, you're the best SPEAR instructor in the school, right? SPEAR is the acronym for Spontaneous Protection Enabling Accelerated Response. That's my self-defense program." She goes, "You're a fear management expert. You're talking on Zoom. You can't contract anything. Like you're in Zoom alone. So there's no transmission. There's no 6 feet. How could you possibly be afraid?" And I looked at her and I went like this, because I hadn't had the question. It just hit me, this wave of anxiety. And this is the power of the program. I went like this. Charlene, I went like this. I went, and I kind of like just unwrapped it in my head. And I said to my wife, "I need this to work or we could lose everything. You don't know how bad it is. I've canceled 35 classes. This could save us mortgage, food. I need this to work. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not afraid of the material. I'm not afraid to teach." And I've been teaching on WebEx and Skype before Zoom was even a company. I'm not afraid to emote and be, engaging online. I said, "I'm afraid and I'm worrying that this won't create traction and people won't engage." And then she looked at me, and as soon as I said that, and this is the most important part for everyone listening, just because I identified what the fear was didn't mean the risk wasn't there anymore. I still had the fear, but because I knew exactly what the fear was, I could focus very clearly on what I had to do to perform. But the fear about the outcome, the traction, the future didn't go away. But when I created clarity on what the fear was, I became emotionally and psychologically more focused. Mm. And so this is what I always talk about is, how can I help you create clarity around the fear? And one of the things I need to regularly remind, our students and our clients is that there are things in life you're going to need to do afraid. That it's not going to be N-O fear. Sometimes it's K-N-O-W fear. The other part that I said to my wife, which was interesting, was I said, that I started my company teaching out of my garage back in 1980, going to different garages around Montreal and teaching people in the garage. She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, the serendipity of all of this is I'm also going to save our company by teaching out of my garage." I just got goosebumps right now. And if I think about it for too long, I could literally start to cry. Here's the thing. What I said earlier is it's that stoic thing where I can't change everything that went on. But if you're in the fear loop, freaking out, you can't create the strategies, the tactics, access the ideas that are going to get you out of the fear loop. So if I'm fighting the fear, I can't also be receptive to like ideas that are going to help me, self-actualize as a human, or fix my family or my company or my fitness or what have you. Some of the stories that I've received over the years about people who've used our program to help their family or themselves or their company. Just like little ideas, just the idea of like, why does fear have to be the enemy here? What is fear trying to teach me? What can I do about the fear? And I still say that, like, the most powerful thing is this: you can't be brave if you're not afraid. Every one of us wants to be brave. If I said to you, look, hey, this shitty thing is going to present and you can hide and it's going to happen anyhow, or you can be brave and face it head on.
Mm.
And if you think about it, it's like, well, we all want to be brave, but when we think about the way we've been taught fear, like nobody ever, no coach, my parents, no mentor ever said to me once growing up anything positive about fear.
Hmm.
That's my journey, even to this day. Like when I look at performance psychologists and sports psychologists and the way they talk about fear, I mean, some of the stuff is interesting, but I think it's still too much in the realm of psychology, amygdala hijack, limbic system, visualize this, do that. And I'm like, okay, we can make this way simpler,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been my journey. And I mentioned this early, it's not it's not at all contradictory or contrarian. It's just an area that people don't think about, and it's so simple. And for some of people, it can be like a light switch. I had a guy on a podcast like yours talking to me about stuff, and I've got a no fear digital program. Aside from the work we do in person or via Zoom, so I got this digital program, and he ends up ordering it, and he calls me a week later, and he says, I never told anyone this, but about 5 years ago, I started getting like mild anxiety, and I just did your program, and I listened to it like 5 times. I made pages of notes, and I noticed like my anxiety's gone. Is that possible? And I said to him, and I say this with a smile and jokingly, I said, look, if I was your therapist, no, it's not possible, because I need you to come in 3 days a week for the rest of your life, because I'm paying off my second home and another car. So I can't tell you you're cured. And I make that as a joke. And don't hate me, all the therapists out there, because there are a lot of wonderful, excellent therapists. But the goal should be do no harm and to set people free, to give them their confidence so they're not codependent on you. And that's the thing we do with our program. As quickly as you can, it's like, hey, you might have a light switch and you're gone. And then people will go, what's next? I go, nothing. They go, well, what if the fear comes back? The fear will come back. And then you just do this again, right? It's super simple.
What is your opinion on the connection between unmanaged fears and anger?
The connection between unmanaged fear and anger. What's the connection between lack of sleep and anger? What's the connection between frustration and anger? What's the connection between not training and feeling trapped in your body and anger? I mean, there's a connection with everything. The way I use it is very positive. I talk about the anger for self-defense. I talk about the anger of indignation, which is a special type of anger. Indignation is almost that, how dare you, anger. If you can think of an event in your life where you were so angry and you were like turned to somebody or the person, you went, how dare you do that or say that or whatever. Because in that moment, you weren't thinking about your safety. You were just, you had to emote that. So in self-defense, if I say fear is fuel, can help support indignation, which puts you back in the fight. It's very, very powerful. So I have a very different spin on it, because that's not at all what you were talking about. I think you were talking about more of the negative, pejorative side of if I can't reconcile what's making me afraid, how does that turn into anger? And I think for some people it does. For some people, it goes the other way too, right? Where they become reclusive or unresponsive or apathetic. I think it has to do with your personality. I'm sure you've met people that are like, they're kind of like this, and you go, "Hey, what's up?" Nothing's up with, and you're going, "Come on, look at me now." I'm like, and they go into a shell because of fear. And then other people are driving fast and honking and taking traffic personally and freaking out and breaking things. So I think a lot of it is just, how you're wired, but for sure there's a connection. It's like everything. I mean, we're all systems.
And I was wondering, how do you find working with executives, business professional, and helping them on their self-defense journey? I'm really interested in that.
The self-defense, specifically the self-defense journey, most of it is word of mouth. I don't market it. It's word of mouth. It's almost always an executive who was an athlete back in the day. So whether he was a runner or a golfer or baseball or football, and somebody who's a little bit dialed in on trends in the world and recognizes, as I said earlier, you understand how to protect your assets. You don't understand how to protect your ass. And if something happened to you, your confidence or you physically, that would affect the security for your family and your company. So I don't know why more people don't. You'd be surprised. There's that intensity. A lot of executives are workaholics, even though they don't like the term. They're driven. And it's like, I was talking out, I worked out this morning. My wife worked out and she looks at me, she goes, "I don't have time to work out." And she was making a joke because she was about to go work out. But it's just this idea that as you get older, the workouts get harder to motivate you to do. They feel longer. You got to do them more frequently, and we need to make time for it. So our approach to self-defense is very much like our approach to fear management, where it could literally be like a half day session, a full day session, and you're done. And it's almost like, well, I'm going to teach you protein, fat, carbs, and how to eat properly. Well, you don't need to talk to me every day. If you just follow the formula, stay in a calorie deficit, eat these healthy foods, and you'll stay lean and you'll feel more energetic. And people complicate it so much, right?
Thank you, Coach. And here is the end of the fitness industry.
Right. But it's crazy. But all that's part of the brainwashing and the propaganda.
I love it. I love that you said that.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with self-defense. We love a John Wick movie, we love a Bruce Lee movie, but if you look at real violence never looks like that, even from trained people. So our approach is really the same way. We teach self-defense with the exact same efficiency as a tactical first aid course.
Okay.
Right? You can learn CPR, how to put on a tourniquet, and some basic tactical first aid in 4, 5, or 6 hours. And then you just need to know that you know how to do it. And it's interesting, what would stop you from doing that would just be fear. Ironically, we come back to, why did you hesitate when it came time to act? Well, you were freaking out because of what was going on. That's the fear spike. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, the people who manage their fear are the ones who manage to fight. And that's you can't solve a problem if you are the problem. So the first problem is the mind navigates the body. Do I believe in myself? Am I giving myself permission to win? So, you asked about executive and self-defense. I don't do a lot of that, more the mindset, the fear management stuff. But if someone said to me, look, I can only spend a weekend with you. We do these weekend retreats, which are pretty cool. I do them 4 times a year at my house in California. They're application only because I'm inviting people to my house. And don't want any weirdos. And but it's an intensive. But I teach self-defense like first aid, and this is the confusing part. You can learn to defend yourself in a day. You need to understand the timeline of violence. That's the 3 Ds: detect, diffuse, defend. How do you improve your situational awareness? What are some legal, moral, ethical things to de-escalate that are based on behavior and psychology? And then if push comes to shove, how do you protect yourself using primal gross motor movement, the only stuff that's reliable in a holy shit scary moment? Again, we come back to, we'll look at violence all over the world. Just get on any internet server and Google real violence. You don't see technical martial arts. So a lot of people get confused. They think I'm not teaching anyone to be a martial artist in a weekend or a day. I'm teaching them how to triage violence in the same way you would triage, like a medical emergency. You don't need to be a paramedic to put on a tourniquet. You don't need to be a doctor to put on a tourniquet. You don't need to be a black belt to stick your thumb in somebody's eyes or smash them over the head with an improvised weapon or to knee somebody. If you can put your seatbelt on, you can elbow somebody across your face. It's the same range of motion. If you can do one push-up, you can do a palm strike. It's the same kinetic chain. If you can lift your leg to tie your shoe and put your foot up on a chair, you can knee somebody in the face or the groin, right? So I teach people how to, like common movements that they already have their 10,000 reps of doing. I teach them the fear management. I teach them what to look out for. And then boom, you go, okay, I know the foundational essential moves to protect myself and my family. And it kind of blows my mind that more people don't do it, but it's because of the unconscious propaganda that you need to be a black belt. You need to train for years. And that would be and there's a lot of people in the martial art world who, if you ask them, can you learn to defend yourself in a day, will say no. And anyone who's telling you that is a snake oil salesman. That would be the same as asking a doctor, hey, there's a firefighter and a paramedic that are putting on a 4-hour life-saving course, CPR and tourniquets, and this Saturday, and you ask your doctor, should you go to it? And he says, that's bullshit. I went to medical school for 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like a doctor would never make fun of you going to like a half day or day long medical course, right? Like a first aid course. They would encourage that. And so it's the same thing. That's an important reframe for your audience, because, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, 60 years old, and you're thinking, man, I should learn a little bit about self-protection, but I don't have time to go get a black belt. You don't need to, right? You can learn. And that's what I've been doing this course since the 80s, so it's called Be Your Own Bodyguard.
Well, you've definitely inspired me, and I'm going to be on the lookout for that weekend invitation and hope to be part of your inner circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'd have to come in a couple of days early to work on the jet lag, but
sure. I can do that. I wanted to ask you, out of curiosity, I know you've had such an extraordinary journey into martial arts. Who has initially inspired you?
That's an easy one. The man, the legend, Bruce Lee, right? So, what's amazing is I discovered Bruce Lee the year he died, 1973. The year before that, I got jumped by a couple of guys, and they were like 15, 16, but I was like 12. So the disparity of size and force was huge. And I got through that fight using a whole bunch of behavioral distractions and things that I shouldn't have known to do when I was 12. They were really, really cool. I faked getting hurt. I faked the pain. They ran away and I wasn't hurt. And I went home. I told my dad, these guys had grabbed me and there was like this bolo punch. This guy was going to hit me in the body. And as it hit me, I thought it was going to kill me. So I screamed. I was so scared because they were so strong and so big. And I remember screaming. And as the punch hit me, I felt the guy, because I screamed I literally was thinking, my rib's going to break, puncture my lung, I'm going to die here. Like you talk about the Fear movie, right?
Yeah.
And I'm struggling to get out of this. This guy behind me's got me, he's holding me. And this guy goes, hey, we'll see you in high school next year. And this bolo punch starts and he starts to come around. And I scream as it hits me. And I felt the guy who was holding me, I felt his grip change. Like I was so dialed into every like psychomotor nuance, and I felt his grip train change, and I knew right away that his grip changed on me because he thought he had really hurt me, and that wasn't the intention. It was just to scare me. So I
Hmm.
screamed again right away. My intuition said, scream again. And I faked being out of breath. So I screamed again. Oh, and then I started going, oh, I got ripped. And he drops me on the ground and I fall to all fours. And I'm looking up and I'm looking, just through my peripheral. And I see them look at each other and their eyes are wide with fear. And they both run. And when they turn the corner, while they're running, I'm going, pretending I'm dying. They turn the corner and I stop. I'm not hurt. I'm not out of breath. I don't have a mark on me. I fix my shirt. I go home. My dad says, "Hey, how was your baseball game?" It was a Sunday afternoon. I said, "It was okay." I go, "Guess what? Two guys beat the shit out of me." And he looks at me, and I don't know if I imagined this, but I always tell people that he said something like, "What was it, a pillow fight?" Because I got no marks on me, right? And I said, "I'm not going to high school. I'm so scared." And he goes, "Well, you got to go to learn some martial arts." So I started looking for a school. I found one Taekwondo school, and then it was 1972, turning 73. I started going there, and then that summer Bruce Lee died, and he was everywhere, and I fell in love with Bruce Lee and his journey and his message. His message actually, there was a guy who interviewed me for one of his books on lessons for Bruce Lee for business people, and so he interviewed me. And I said, one of Bruce's expressions or maxims has guided me as a business person throughout my life. And he said something to the effect of, to hell with circumstances, I'll create my own circumstances. And it was very, very powerful because people told me, that I would never make it with my approach to martial arts and self-defense. I remember one of my favorite stories is I'm 15 years old. I'm working on trying to do the splits. I'm lying on the floor and I'm staring at I used to order these Bruce Lee magazines from Japan, and they were like gorgeous photography, and I was just like fascinated with this guy. And my mom comes over, and we had a generational business in ladies' clothing, and my mom comes over and she goes, "Hey, when you're finished stretching and stuff like that, I got some chores for you to do, and also we need to have a talk. You're going to graduate CEGEP next year. It's like high school in Canada. And have you thought about what you're going to do? You're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, an astronaut. What are you like? Are you going into the family business?" And I looked up at her and I said, "Mom, school is not going to be an important thing for me because I'm going to be a martial artist like Bruce Lee. I'm going to develop my own self-defense system." And she pat me on the head and she said, "Okay, dear, we'll talk about this when you're older." And here I am, older, and develop my own self-defense system, right? And so Bruce Lee was my first spiritual guide, not just as a martial artist, but also just in life. To hell with circumstances, create your own circumstances.
Thanks. I love the story that you shared, and definitely going to watch some Bruce Lee after this.
Yeah, yeah, he's the man.
I'm so grateful for our conversation today. How would you like our audience to connect to your world?
I'm on Instagram a lot, LinkedIn, as Tony Blauer, TonyBlauer. My main website, if you want to learn more about all the different verticals of my company, is BlauerTrainingsystems.com. My last name, Blauer, Blauer, trainingsystems.com. I do all my social media. So like if you message me and you get an answer, it's not a bot and it's not somebody on my team. It's actually me. I'm as responsive as I can be, trying to work on myself, be a good husband, be a good dad, run a company, have a team. So give me some time if I don't get back to you in 5 minutes. And if there's anything I can do to help you and your extended family, just reach out. I loved our talk. I loved some very, I've been on hundreds of podcasts, so sometimes you get like the same types of questions over and over again. And I love that your questions were unique and you put some thought into them. So I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot, Tony. I appreciate that. And I feel very inspired by our conversation. So thank you. I look forward to coming to one of your weekends and learning a bit more about self-defense.
Absolutely. And we do have I got trainers all over the world. We've got some amazing people in the UK, Scotland, Netherlands, and I do travel to Europe from time to time. So maybe we'll set something up there, and it'll
That
be
sounds
easier
good.
than flying over here.
I love that. Thanks, Tony.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with me today and listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe so that you can receive weekly updates. And if today's message resonated with you, please remember to share it with a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who could really benefit from this episode.